So again, this is the course you already have seen into the emails also, Zero to Lab, the pathway to CCI. So welcome guys again to this course. So what we are going to do in this particular course is to go through all the particular requirement topics that we have, required topics, and also go through the labs. So what we have seen, like I have also been in training business for more than 15 years, and out of which last 11 years I have been training CCI students or aspirants as well. So what I have seen is that most of the courses are either they are lacking the practical part completely, or it's a very little practical part. If you go to like video series, other organizations, they don't have any instructor involvement as much, and you lose your motivation after a point, and because you are on your own, it becomes difficult because you also have your work and other responsibilities in the life, right? So it becomes slightly difficult to self-manage in that case. And then there is another aspect of it where there are boot camps, where they actually have 5 days or 10 days boot camps where they go through all the practical topics, and it goes very fast, and there is hardly any time to practice for yourself. So if you are very good in OSPF, but you are lacking some practice in QoS, everything is treated same. Everything is taught with the practical by the instructor, and then you get very little time to practice yourself. So if you want to bridge the gaps, or just there are a few loopholes you want to fix, it might be good if you're already thoroughly practiced. But if you want to actually prepare for the CCI exam, where you have a little bit of knowledge or you have good knowledge, but you really need to get into the practical, boot camps are too fast for that. So there was a middle ground somewhere which was missing, where we can actually combine these two things, right? And that's exactly what we aim to do with Zero to CCI and Zero to Lab. So our flagship program, Zero to CCI, has been very, very successful because we go in depth into every topic. So we start from layer 2, then we go to layer 3, then we have VPN technologies, then we have SDN, where we have SD-WAN and SDA programmability. Then comes the single protocol labs, where every single topic have its own lab, and then we have the multi-protocol labs, which mimic the actual exam lab, right? So we wanted to make something which can perfectly complement Zero to CCI, and also make sure that we consistently take actions. So that's why we created Zero to Lab. So now what happens in Zero to Lab, of course, I will show you the detailed structure in this slide. But just to give you a basic idea, is that we start with a couple of weeks of video training, so that if for the next 2 weeks, you will see that you have to go through the switching videos from the Zero to Lab portal. And since if you have also purchased Zero to CCI, you can, and if you need a little bit more in-depth knowledge, you can refer to the similar videos there, where theory is, we are concentrating more on theory. But in the Zero to Labs, you will see that when I'm explaining a topic, for example, let's say we start VLAN. So in the VLAN, I will explain you how the VLANs work, what are the different aspects of a VLAN, how many VLANs you can create, what is the difference between .1Q and ISL, why there are two tagging technologies at the first place, why ISL is no longer used, even Cisco has ditched it, and now only .1Q is the standard. So we go through all the specifics that we need to go through, but then I also go through the lab right from the first day, right? So I start with the lab. I go through the lab step by step. I solve it. And then after that, the second hour of the session, you need to go through the lab again, the same lab. Now you must be thinking, okay, if you have already gone through the lab, that means I understood it. Why do I need to do it again? Because the objective here is not to make sure that you remember everything, because that is something which can either maybe you already are familiar with the technology, or it is completely new to you and it will take some time. For example, SD-WAN. If SD-WAN is completely new to you, it might take some time to catch up. But the objective here is not to cram anything. The objective is to make sure that our paradigm shift happens and we start doing the configuration. So don't test yourself while you're going through Zero to Lab. It's not for testing yourself that you can retain information or not. Whether you can retain information or not, or whether you remember every command with the perfect arguments and options. No, it's not the objective here. The objective is to practice, right? And while you are practicing, all the resources are open for you. So for example, when I send you the lab, there will be a PDF file with the instructions, what you need to do. And then there will be alongside a solution file I'll send you. So if you get stuck somewhere, or if you forget something which I did in my presentation, you can definitely go and refer to the solution part and see how exactly that is done. If in the solution part also you find something which you think, okay, I don't understand this part quite clearly, although I do see the solution in front of me, you can definitely ask me, because I will be available into the Zoom session. Plus, of course, we will have actually few Zoom sessions every week, 2 Zoom sessions every week. So for the remaining days, rest of the days, when you are practicing it again, or if you try to do it again and you find something which you need answers for, you can definitely ask me on our Facebook group, or you can definitely shoot me an email, and I will be available throughout the week as well. Because the recordings of these sessions will be available for lifetime. So you can definitely go through these recordings as many times as you want. The point being, you have all the resources and you have access to me to ask any questions, and you should fully utilize it. And don't try to test yourself for now. For now, you just need to make sure that you show up and practice. That's why this course is designed into 3 parts. Today is the introduction part. And then for the next 2 weeks, you will see, I will give you the access to the Zero to Lab portal so that you can go through the switching pre-recorded sessions of Zero to Lab. So you can get a feel of it. You can set up your EVNG, and as I do the labs, and I will send you the labs as well for the switching part, the basics of switching. So you can go through those labs and see how I'm doing it into the recorded session, and then you try to do it yourself. So by the end of 2 weeks, you will be well versed with the structure of the course, and you will be on the same level that we need to make sure that we go from there. When we go into the more in-depth technologies, like then we dive into the STP, Ether channel, then we later go to the routing technologies, MPLS, QoS. So that time you will already be familiar that how this course is structured and how we are going to go about it, right? And of course, that is the third phase. So first phase is we start the introduction today. Then the next 2 weeks, you go through the recorded sessions. And then third phase is the live session, which will be the longest part of the course, where we go through all the labs, right? So let's talk about the details so that if you have any questions, those will be answered, right? Excuse me. So course structure, as I was saying. So today is the introduction to the course. Today we are going to talk about what this course has to offer, exactly what different parts are we going to cover. So what is expected from this course. We are also going to talk about the exam structure. So you might already be familiar about the CCIE exam structure, but we will go through it again to see that how this course actually aligns with the requirement of the exam. And of course, what's expected from your side. So that is also something we'll talk today so that you have a complete idea what needs to be done, right? After this, we have 2 weeks of offline warm-up preparation. Offline means that we will not have the live sessions, but you will have the access to the initial live sessions I did into the previous lab so that you can get familiar with exactly the structure of the course and get all the tools ready for you, right? So for the next 2 weeks, you can actually take time to set up EVNG and check if all is okay. And by the way, in this offline period, I will be available on email and on the Facebook group. So any questions, any confusion, any issues, feel free to shoot me an email and make sure that you are ready with all the tools which are needed, right? Second thing, so this is the period to get ready with some core switching topics before we start the labs, right? So which topics are we talking about here? So initially, we have subnetting, CDP, LLDP, switching basics, VLANs, and VTP. So we are not going too deep without the live sessions because I want to make sure once we get to the core of the switching like STP, Ether channel, which are mostly asked into the exam, guaranteed to be asked, we make sure that we go back to the live sessions before that. This is just to make sure that you are aware of the structure and get a feel of how is it going to be once we get to the very detailed topics later, right? So these are the topics that you will see into the portal. So to prepare for these, initial Zero to Lab videos are opened in the portal. So you can go through that. So you can go to karotul.mykazabi.com and there you will find it, right? So let me show you that just an example. So when you go to the karotul.mykazavi.com, or you can also contact Christian, that what will be the access site for you if you want to get to the zero to lab. And then you can go to the zero to lab video series, and you see that the first couple of weeks where we have introduction to the course overview, which is similar to today. So you can skip this one. But the EVNG preparation, in case if you want to know how to download, install, set up EVNG, how do you operate this? Like how do you start the devices, stop the devices? How do you save the configuration? What if you want to wipe the configuration again to go back to the base configuration, like pre-config, we can call it. All these information you will get into this video, very, very useful video. So you can always go through this. And then you can see the CDP, LLDP, subnetting, and switching, VLANs, and VTP. And the labs that you see, if you click on the lab part, you will be able to download the labs from here, the downloads section. So you will have the PDFs where you have the questions, and the solution PDF will also be there in case if you want to do the lab on your own also. Because in the video, I will go through the lab after the initial theory, step by step, solving everything. So you can just follow me along later once you can follow me along, or you can do it later by downloading the files from here, right? So this is the first 2 weeks structure. So just a second. All right. So this is the portal, right? karotul.mykazavi.com. And that's where you will find into the My Library. You will find your zero to lab section, or you can ask Christian that exactly what is the link. So EVNG preparation, and then the labs that you need to do, right? All right, so that's the offline warm-up preparation part. But after a couple of weeks, when we resume the live training, that's where you will already be ready with everything. You will have your EVNG setup. You will have a feel of how exactly the course goes every week, because you have been covering the basics of switching from the zero to lab portal, the pre-recorded sessions. And now we are ready to kick off with the live session. So what do we do in the live session? What is expected this part? Because this is going to be the longest part, right? Where we cover everything. So in the live training or live kickoff, we have 2 hours per day. So we are going to go it for 2 days every week. So as you know that it will be Monday and Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. I think EST. So that is 2 hours per day. But just make sure that you see the time, because it is according to the Bangkok time, 6 in the morning. So if there is a time change into like daylight saving time changes happen in sometime next month. So make sure that you are aware of that as well. So out of these 2 hours, 1 hour will be the instructor-led lab configuration. So in this part, I am going to introduce the technology, make sure we go through all the important aspects of it, and then we do the lab. So when I say we do the lab, I will open EVNG in the Zoom session, and I will open the PDF file, which has all the instructions, what needs to be done, and we are going to configure the lab. And I will be explaining along the way that why are we doing something and how do we need to do this, and what is the reason it is done in that particular method. And of course, what are the important commands to check it once it is done, whether it is properly done or not. Because one thing you will notice in the exam, in the CCIE lab exam also, it's such a huge exam that when you start configuring it, when you start going through it, it's very important to keep on checking if your configuration is producing the result that you desire. Because if you don't do it often in the exam, you might end up completing the exam by doing some mistakes somewhere here and there without even realizing it, because it doesn't break the lab enough to notice, but it breaks the lab enough to fail. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that everything is configured and it is producing the expected and desired result. So that is very important, and that's also something I'm going to cover every time when I go through the instructor-led lab configuration, right? Now, this will be followed by the 1 hour participants need to configure the same lab, right? So now the same lab you will do on the Zoom session. So I'll be available on the Zoom session and you will be configuring it. And once it is done, you can actually send me the results on my email. Based on the technology, I will ask you different kind of output on the email. Now, when you are doing the lab, when you're configuring the lab for the same thing, although it says 1 hour each, but it might change a little bit. You will see depending on the technology which we are covering. Sometimes it might go over 2 hours as well, depending on the technology. Sometimes it will be less than 2 hours if the technology for that day is not so huge and the lab is not big enough, right? So that can actually vary a little bit. And between the instructor and the participant configuration time, this may also vary because for me, I also have to cover a little bit of theory. And while I'm doing the lab, I need to explain you also what I'm doing. So I might take a little bit more time, a little bit less time, and the same thing happens for you as well, right? This is just a basic guideline how we are going to go through about it. And of course, if any issues, you can refer to the solution file, which will also be given to you. So every week when we start the live training, every week I will send you the new labs, although the labs are available in Zero to Lab portal also, but I'll send you on your email as well so that you have a copy there. And along with the lab, I will also send you the solution file, right? So you will have access to both of them. So if the solution file is not clear, then you can, of course, ask me as well. So whenever you get stuck into the lab, as I told you, don't try to test yourself. This is not a test. This is the learning process. For the next 6 months, we want to make sure we are learning thoroughly. So if you feel anytime confused or conflicted, a particular information is not coming to the mind, feel free to check the solution file. And if that doesn't make much sense, feel free to ask me as well. Any number of questions, right? So there is no rate limiting on that part. Okay, so this is the course structure we have. And how do we understand, how do we go about this to access this course structure, right? So the tools that we use, as I mentioned earlier also, we use EVNG on VMware. So EVNG is a emulating software which actually uses the real iOS images. So you will get as real experience as possible. And we will be using it on VMware because VirtualBox has shown some slowness or some issues. So VMware is the best option to go for it. Unless until you also have your own solution like some KVM or ESXi, if you're using something, you can actually import the OVA, right? So EVNG is packaged into a OVA file, and that OVA file you can import into whatever the virtualization software you are using. We recommend VMware Workstation Player if you are using it just for your own purpose on the Windows machine. That will be more than sufficient, right? So this is going to cover routing, switching, SD-WAN, programmability part, all we will be able to completely do on the EVNG, right? So just to give you an example, you will see an IP address like this, right? And you just need to open this IP address into the browser where you will see all the labs, right? Later, you will see in the second part of the live training, we will also go through the SD-WAN. So for SD-WAN, I will send you a separate OVA once we reach to that point, right? So for SD-WAN, I will send you a different OVA where the topology will be slightly different. And of course, all the important or required images will be part of it. So let me show you that as well quickly. So meanwhile, it is loading. Let's talk about what else do we need. So topologies are already set into the EVNG. You just need to go to the browser and start using them. And lab files will be sent every week for the next week. So for example, today we have a live session. Let's say after the 2 weeks of kickoff, we have a live session. And in the live session, I'm going to cover STP, for example. So I will already send you the STP lab and the solution file beforehand, few days before, so that you can actually go through it if you want. Although you don't need to, I just sent you so that you are ready for the live session. So at the time of live session, you have all the files you need. That's why I will be sending it to you beforehand, right? And solution files will also be sent along the lab files, as I mentioned earlier. Now, during the off days in a week, because we will have sessions 2 days every week, you are encouraged actually to do the labs again, and feel free to contact me in case of any questions. As many times as you do the lab, it's better to just make sure that you are very comfortable with the topics. So let's see. You can see this is also started. We can open this IP address. Username and password is admin and you, and then you can see something like this. So for example, this is your SD-WAN topology, where we have vBond, vManager, vSmart, and multiple VHS into different sites. So this is just to give you an example that SD-WAN is also covered, and EVNG can actually help us to do all the SD-WAN practicals as well, right? But if you want to see the single protocol labs that we will go through, first part, that will be another OVA which I sent you first, right? So don't worry, the OVA that you have downloaded already or you're going to download from my welcome email, that will be this one, which we will use for our switching, routing, MPLS, QoS, multicasting, IP version 6, DMVPN. All these topics will be covered using this particular OVA, where we have different labs. Most of the routing part you will see, we will cover with the base lab, where we have a topology with multiple routers like this. And for other specific topics like switching topics, we have different labs. For example, we have Ether channel lab, CDP lab, STP lab, VLAN, VTP, SPAN, RSPAN. So these different labs are there, right? And you can see CCIE multi-protocol lab is also there. So this lab will be done once we are done with the theory topics of base, core, routing, and switching. So then actually we can go through and implement all the technologies at the same time with a multi-protocol lab. So this is also something we are going to cover here, right? So that's the structure. Let's go back to the slide. So that was the course structure. So again, just to summarize what are we going to do in the course structure. Today was the introduction, and next 2 weeks, you will have the access to the Zero to Lab portals to go through the switching videos and see exactly how this course will go about, and set up your EVNG and be ready and get ready with the basics of switching, because then we will directly jump to the important topics, the SPAN protocol, Ether channel, and then of course the routing, right? When the live training kicks off, it will be 2 hours per day, and where I will be doing the lab, and then you will follow along after that, right? So that's the information about the course, but let's talk about the exam, like what exactly is expected into the exam. So in case if you are not familiar, or if you would like to know how the CCIE enterprise exam is structured, basically. So exam is divided into 2 parts. One is the qualification exam. So if you remember earlier, I don't know if you are aware or not, but before the new enterprise exam, the earlier CCI exam used to have 2 different exams: CCI written exam, which people used to call the qual exam, qualification exam. And then after that written exam or multiple choice question exam, you had the 8 hours of lab exam, right? But after the CCI enterprise exam introduction, what they have done is that the qualification to take the lab is no longer a dedicated written exam. It's actually one of the CCNP certification core exam. So naturally, if you are doing your CCNA and then you want to do your CCNP, so in CCNP, you need to do 1 core exam and 1 elective exam. So the core exam, which is called NCore 350401, this exam, when you take, not only you are progressing in your CCNP journey, but now you also qualify to book the lab for CCI. So CCNP NCore exam is the prerequisite now to book the lab for the practical portion, right? And you will see that all the topics we are going to cover in this course will also be enough for you to be prepared for the NCore exam. Of course, you have to go through the practice questions, because written exams, as I mentioned earlier, is a different beast. It needs a specific practice after having the knowledge, right? So that is something we'll discuss when it comes to that part. And then, of course, comes the lab exam. So CCI Enterprise Infrastructure version 1.0 or 1.1, I think, which has come out. So you will see that this is the 8-hour portion. So let's talk about the lab exam more and see the details about it. What exactly do you see when you go for the exam on that day, right? So lab exam is an 8 hours hands-on based exam. And this is also divided into two different parts. So the first 3 hours is design part. So design part is similar to your written exam because it doesn't have any configuration. It will have a separate topology. And instead of configuring the devices, you will have multiple choice questions, drag and drop questions, no configuration required, right? So they might ask you questions like, okay, I am showing you the output of this show command. What can you conclude with this output? And you might have 4 options. And if you are, again, that's why 0 to CCI and 0 to lab are so important. If your theory is solid, then and of course with the practical, because if your theory is good, you know how the thing's supposed to work. If your practical is good, you know how the show commands look, what exactly are you looking for. You will be able to easily answer this part, right? That's why I always tell people that if you are preparing for CCIE, prepare for the practicals along with a solid foundational knowledge, and design part is automatically covered. You don't need to worry about it. They might give you like a communication screenshot between a regular employee and the network administrator. Regular employee is saying that I'm actually experiencing some slowness into the network. What could be the reason? And there could be some communication from network administrator side. And based on their communication, you have to find out what could be the issue out of the 4 options. Again, the basic troubleshooting skills are needed for the design part, right? Second part, which is the bigger part, is the deploy, operate, and optimize. So this is going to be 5 hours. And there will be 3 major sections into this: routing and switching, software-defined networking, and programmability. Now, what do they cover into the routing and switching part? So they are going to cover all the switching topics that we talked about. Subnetting, they are not going to directly ask, but subnetting will be everywhere. So all the addressing you will see, they will be subnetted accordingly. So you need to be comfortable with subnetting to read the diagram of the exam properly. That's why we have subnetting as one of the first topic as well in our course, because it is 0 to lab. So we have to make sure everything is covered, right? So we have subnetting, we have all the switching topics which are important: VLAN, VTP, STP, Ether channel, SPAN, RSPAN. In the routing, we have all the routing protocols: RIP, EIGRP. Sorry, RIP is not there anymore. It's just a habit to say RIP also. We have covered RIP though in this course because we want to just let you know that how it used to be before, so that you can actually appreciate the advanced protocols more. So we have covered RIP, but it's not in the exam. So we have EIGRP, OSPF, BGP, IP version 6, DMVPN, MPLS, quality of service, QoS, and multicast. So and then IP services like network address translation, NTP, SNMP, and syslog. These things, they are part of the routing and switching section. So this is going to be the biggest section in the exam actually. Out of the 3 major sections into second part, routing and switching part will be the longest. It is going to take the longest time. Second part is SDN, software defined networking, where you have two types of software defined networking. One is in the campus network, which is called SDA, software defined access, and which uses the Cisco DNS Center, DNAC. And then you have the software defined network on the WAN side, which is called SD-WAN. So we are going to cover both of them. And then we have the programmability, where we go through Python programming and how you can use it for your programmability into Cisco, Ansible, Puppet, Chef. What are the basics of these concepts? So this part is also not very huge. They don't want you to be expert of programming. They don't expect you to be the best Python programmer or knowing Ansible in and out, or knowing how to use Postman. So you will not be needed to know expert level knowledge in this, because it's not a DevOps CCIE, right? It's not a developer and operator CCIE, but they want you to be familiar with it and should be able to do some basic work along with this, right? So that is also something we will cover in this part, right? So when you go for the exam in the morning, first 3 hours you are you deal with the design part. And then the next 5 hours, you have to do the deploy, operate, and optimize. So if you're planning to take the exam, what should be your objective? When we are going to do the lab, you need to make sure that you can complete the lab. Means not only the single protocol, not only the routing switching part, but also the software-defined networking and programmability part. You should be able to complete the whole thing into 4 hours. You should practice, 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 not to cram anything, but to become more fluent and become more fast in doing the configurations so that you can complete the lab in practice timing in 4 hours. Extremely important, absolutely important. Why? Because in the exam, first of all, you will be slower than when you are practicing at home. Because when you are practicing at home, psychologically you do know, okay, even if I make a mistake, nothing is going to happen. So you go a little bit fast. You go a little bit careless. Just like if you are playing Vice City, GTA, or if you are playing a mobile racing game, you know you are not going to have any actual accident. So you go recklessly, right? Similarly, when you are practicing, you will be naturally fast. So if you can complete your lab in 4 hours here, in the exam, you will take more time, 4.5 hours, I would say, right? Which is crucial to have that 30 minutes left after you finish your configuration to go and check everything again with the proper show commands and see, did you make any typos? Did you forget something? Because small mistakes, which are not going to break the whole thing, but which will cut the points, can lose us our CCI number, right? So we want to make sure everything we can check again, and we have time to go back and check everything again, right? So absolutely important to try to finish the lab when you're practicing within 4 hours, so that when you go for the exam, you can finish it in like 4.5 hours or something, right? Now, I see that some people prefer PuTTY, some people prefer Secure CRT, some have PuTTY connection manager. Like I use Super PuTTY, very easy also. In the exam, they only use PuTTY, and they do not allow you to use the tabbed version. So basically, you will have to open you click on the device and it will open a separate PuTTY session for everything. So for the time being, it's okay, whatever the program you're using. But when you reach to the multi-protocol labs, I would suggest you to just use PuTTY so that you get that feeling that, okay, multiple PuTTYs will be open and I have to switch between them. I should have that particular practice. Also in the exam, they use the Logitech keyboard and the mouse. So it's better to use a Logitech K120 keyboard when you are practicing, so that there is no foreign feeling for the fingers when it is trying to operate on a different keyboard. Yeah, these are small things, but they do matter when you have to race against the time, right? And in the exam, you will see that there is a timer going on in the reverse, and that has a huge psychological pressure also, that, okay, time is running out, right? So in the exam, you see devices will be partially pre-configured. That means you don't configure everything from the scratch. Like if they ask you to configure OSPF, you will see some parts is already configured. MPLS, some parts is already configured. So you just need to fix the remaining part. Some things might not be there at all, and you might have to configure from the beginning. But IP addressing and all these, you will see, is already there. You don't need to configure every device from the scratch, right? And you will need to configure the device as per the instructions. So this is what you will practice a lot in this course, because we will have PDFs with the instructions similar to what you get into the exam. So you will have a familiarity to how Cisco asks questions, right? All right. So how can this program help you? As I mentioned earlier also, the main thing missing in a lot of programs is a lot of practice, because video-based programs, you don't get much practice there, or you don't feel motivated enough to practice, right? So this program addresses this issue with following plan. All the single protocol labs that we are going to do are configured and explained by me, followed by configuration by you. So we both have active participation every week. Couple of days, we will make sure that we do the labs together, so that you also feel obliged and you also feel pressure to complete the labs, because otherwise they will start piling up if you don't do them, right? Plus, we also give you ample time, like 2 days of the labs, but you get 5 days free in the week. So you get ample of time in case if you missed a class, or if you were a little bit slow in configuring lab and you thought I will do it later, you still have time to catch up before we start the next set of labs next week, right? So perfectly timed or spaced, I would say. Software-defined network is also covered in depth here. So this is the new portion which they have added. SD-WAN is completely virtualized, and we will be able to use all the aspects of it, and we will understand this in depth. SDA also will understand in depth, but we we cannot virtualize it, right? So because the Cisco DNS Center has some crazy requirements. So for this, you will see that once you understand the basics or you understand the concept, and before you go for the exam, for a few weeks, you can actually take the Cisco practice labs. So Cisco practice labs are like $50 you have to pay for 4 hours of rack time, and you get the real DNS center access, and you can go through all the different parts of it to see. Because your knowledge will already be there, I will make sure we cover everything to understand SDA properly and to understand the logic and everything behind it. But to have your hands on it and to practice it, it's better to take the Cisco practice labs when it comes to that part, right? Also, programmability and automation practicals will also be covered, right? And full and actual exam like multi-protocol labs to practice, that is also something we'll cover in this course. And troubleshooting tips. This is something you will see that this heavily depends on the foundational knowledge. So if I already know what is needed for the OSPF neighborship to work, and if it is not working, then I will be able to find it out. If I already know that OSPF needs the timers needs to have the timer same, both side timer configuration should be same, authentication configuration should be same, area must match, area type also must match, router ID should not match, they should be unique. If I know all these things, I can check why neighborship is not coming up. MTU mismatch could be also one of the issues. And if I know which commands can I use to check that, troubleshooting becomes a breeze. It becomes easy, right? And of course, throughout the course, you have my support. So not only while we are having the live sessions, like for the next 2 weeks when you are going through the recorded labs or recorded sessions of switching, if you have any question, feel free to shoot me an email or ask me on the Facebook group. And throughout the course also, for the next 6 months, anytime you have any technical question, feel free to ask me, right? Don't ask me any philosophical questions, though I am not very good in those, right? And of course, anything we teach here is recorded, and you will have the access to the class recordings for lifetime, right? So lifetime access for class recordings. All right. So that's all we have to offer here. But what's expected from your side in this case? So as I mentioned earlier, that we will have a 2 weeks of preparation from the Zero to Lab portal. So that will be actually for the next 2 weeks, right? So we will actually meet again on 20th, which is 20th November, which is Monday, for the live session. So once the live session starts, what is expected from your side is you just need to show up, do the labs. So make sure that you constantly doing them. Even if you think that I don't remember everything on the top of my head, it's fine. You have the solution file, you have my support as well. Important thing is to doing the configuration, right? Moving those fingers. Ask questions and be consistent. So if we, week by week, if we go like this, you will see that the progress will happen. Initially, it might not show, or you might not feel that you are progressing. But if you consistently show up and do the labs, you will see significant results after some time, and you will start getting everything into the flow as well, right? So that's it from my side for today. I just wanted to make sure I introduced the program. So make sure you contact Christian how to access to Zero to Lab portal, and you go through the switching part, the first couple of weeks videos, set up EVNG, everything in the next 2 weeks, and get the feel of the program, that how exactly are we going to go through it and what we are going to see in the live training, which is the third phase. So when the live training kicks off, we will start it from 20th November, Monday, 7 p.m. EST. So before that, you will be ready, and you will have seen all the particular parts of it, right? So about myself, just a little bit. I have 16 years of training experience, more than 11 years of CCIE training experience. And I myself have done CCIE twice. So I did my routing and switching, and then I did my service provider CCIE. So I have done it twice. And I have practical experience also with the consultation work with major service providers. So I have worked for one of the service provider in Germany, also some universities in Jamaica, And also back in home in India, I have worked with NTT Network, Telegram and Telegraph, Japanese service provider company. And we had a lot of customers, one of few of the largest customers where we had to implement VPN technologies and SD-WAN technologies as well, right? So that is also something from my side. So that's it. Let's get started. And I'm very excited to have you on this journey, and I hope the same for you, right? So I'll stop sharing the screen.